Today I'm giving you my 5 tips on how you can make your running shoes last longer. As someone who's worked in the footwear industry, I know how frustrating it can be when your shoes fall short on delivering you the lifespan you're looking for. Luckily, I have some tricks of the trade on how you can get the most out of your running shoes. Tip number 1, the insole swap. If your shoes are beginning to feel a bit flat underfoot, feeling like they're collapsing pretty easily, try adding in a new insole to your fading pair. Make sure that the insoles are nice and padded, preferably made from an EVA material, and this will mimic the shoe's midsole cushioning. You could either grab insoles from another pair of running shoes you own, or perhaps buy a generic insole such as the soft sole comfort insole. Fresh insoles won't fix a broken pair of shoes, but they can make a surprising difference as your shoes approach the end of their lifespan. Tip number 2, shoe rotation. Did you know that shoes need time to recover after use? Well, sort of. When you use your shoes, the midsole cushioning compresses, which usually takes time to expand and recover again before they become as bouncy and as plush as you'd like them to be. This is one reason why you should rotate between different shoes over different runs. An easy way to do this is by having one speed shoe and one mileage shoe. Some runners will use one shoe for everything, from their gymming to their grocery shopping, and they end up flattening the shoe despite doing very little actual running in them. All in all, having multiple shoes does cost more up front, but because you can use your shoes more specifically, you end up getting more mileage out of all of them altogether over the long haul. Tip number 3, purchase smart. If you've had wear-related issues on your previous shoes, you need to be practical in selecting your next pair. For instance, if you're a heavier runner, you shouldn't go for the softest, mushiest shoe in store, as it probably won't last as long. If you're getting a road shoe and planning on taking them off-road every now and then, make sure the shoe has a good outsole rubber coverage as opposed to an exposed sole. If you have shoes that are splitting on the sides, make sure your foot isn't too wide for the shoe. If it is, many popular running shoes have different width options. Women have the option of a 2A, which is a narrow cut, B width, which is the standard fit, D width, which is the wide fit. While men, on the other hand, have a D width option, which is a regular standard fit, a 2E fit, which is a wide fit, and a 4E, which is an extra wide fit or width. Because running shoes are made from synthetic materials which don't stretch as much as a leather would, it is advised that you get the sizing right from the word go. Having the right length is also very important. If your shoes are either too long or too short, it can reflect in the wearing of your shoe's upper and heel counter. Sometimes it doesn't matter how strong a shoe's material is if your shoe's sizing is wrong, as the sheer number of steps you take in the wrong size shoe will break down almost any material. So when you perform a shoe fitting, ensure that you have about a thumbnail's length between your toes and the front of your shoe. A good way to double check this is to crease your shoe to mimic downhill running. If any of your toes are touching the front of the shoe in this position, the shoe is most likely too small for you. Conversely, if your heel is slipping or sliding around while you run, the size is probably too big for you. Bear in mind that not all shoes are sized the same, so sometimes you'll have to size up or down to get the right fit. Also keep in mind that with each half size you go up, you add half a centimeter in length, and with each full size you go up, you add a full centimeter in length. Ultimately, if you pick a shoe that matches the type of running you're doing and ensure the fit matches your foot, you're far more likely to get good wear from the shoe. Tip number 4, home care. Owning a pair of shoes requires very little maintenance, but you may want to occasionally give them a wash. Avoid washing machines if you can, as well as hot water, which can unbind the glue that bonds your shoe together. When you're kicking your shoes off for the day, it's always recommended that you unlace your shoes so that you don't cause ripping of your heel counter by tugging your foot out. Although I don't necessarily always follow this advice, I'll at least be gentle with removing my shoes and make sure that my laces are loose enough so that I'm not ripping my shoe off my foot. At home, there's a few DIY tricks you can do to repair your shoes. For adhesive fixing, you can use a product like shoe glue, which can help bond perhaps your midsole and your outsole together. And you can also use a product like that to coat exposed areas and just add a layer of protection. Fixing your shoe's upper requires some craftsmanship. The best way can often be to stitch a torn open upper closed and then add in a leather patch from the inside. Tip number 5, have realistic expectations. My last tip when it comes to looking after your running shoes is having the right expectation on how much wear you can expect from them. We often speak of a shoe having 600 to 1,000 kilometers worth of wear, but it really just comes down to the runner. As I mentioned earlier, if you're someone who does everything in your shoes, from gymming to shopping in the mall, you're going to get a lot less miles than someone who dedicates the shoe purely to running. Also, not all miles are equal. Some runners will run slower than others and accumulate less miles, despite running the same frequency and duration as another runner. So naturally, this runner may not get the same mileage as a Joe Soap would. When you buy a pair of running shoes, I think it's worth chatting with a salesperson about the product that you're interested in. You may take a pair of HOMECARE Speedgoat trail running shoes, for instance, and notice that after one run, the shoes scuff on the sidewalls a bit easier. This might seem odd, but it's actually normal for the shoe and won't affect the wear nor function of the shoe. And this might be the difference between you being upset with the brand versus just embracing the fact that your shoes scuff on the sidewalls a bit easier. To a similar extent, you might have a product perhaps like the Asics Fuji Trabuca Sky, another trail running shoe that has exposed lugs made for the trails. And should you take these shoes on the road, they're not going to last very long. So their premature lifespan is not a design issue, but rather a use issue. I'm not saying that shoes don't have flaws, but often they're just used incorrectly, which leads to their shortened lifespan. So those are my 5 key tips on how you can make your running shoes last longer. Subscribe to my channel for more running and footwear insight videos, and let's keep in touch until the next one. Until then, peace.
Stone Cold Stunner. She was a winner, started working at the diner. It serves as a reminder to count your blessings, 'cause this town ain't fair. They'll put you down and